Now then, dear friends, this is Rick Walton at Cricket Man Wales in sunny Pembrokeshire, about to don very uncool shades. Why am I doing that? Because I'm in danger of sounding like some kind of pretentious arse. Can I say that? Yeah, of course I can. I'm amongst friends and sharing a few thoughts, and I want to kind of undermine any pomposity that's going to happen by looking like a donkey. Um, Anybody else got teenage daughters by any chance? My daughter, if she sees this, because these are major uncles, Specsavers finest, bought without thinking about it, right? She slaughters me night and day on stuff like this. But you know, maybe it's good in terms of keeping the ego in check. That's what it's there for, friends. Am I going to put them there? That's probably even worse. But whatever. Bit of both. Bit of both. Okay. Had my first session in schools. Actually, I'm going back to them yesterday, which felt kind of groovy. Actually, it was great to be back. And on the one hand, aware of the responsibility of that, because that's one of the magic things, right? As coaches, and sorry for those of you who don't know me, most will in a sense. I'm a chance to shine coach. I go into schools. I'm a community cricket coach. I'm hoping that some of what I say might transfer, might be somewhat relevant to anybody else, male or female, doing any other kind of coaching. But there's a couple of things that I want to share, and by all means, shout at me or burn it or whatever. Yeah. Firstly, I've just had literally an hour ago a conversation with a head who I know very well. I'm not going to name him actually. Fantastic, lovely fella. And when I say fantastic, I'm thinking fantastically supportive, inevitably, of sporty things, and absolutely gets the real value, you know. And again, sorry, we're going to drop into sound bites here all over the show, aren't we? Because we all hear this stuff, and yet, come on, people, it is real. We know, those of us who coach, who go into schools, we know actually that we really are changing Sophie's life by giving her a magic bit of encouragement, and her having a magic experience. That stuff happens to all of us, right? It does happen, and that is absolutely wonderful. And this particular gent gets that totally, and he gets that intense. Sorry, beg your pardon. In terms of the holistic thing, again, it sounds a bit soundbitey. We've all heard it before, but there really are benefits across educational things in terms of confidence. We know all this stuff, but maybe a reminder. Come on, people, that's powerful. That's why we do it. And I had actually relatively very interesting conversation with a particular gent, and rather inspiring one in terms of revisiting that pretty fundamental stuff, why we do it, the difference we can make, and importantly for people like me, that lots of teachers, lots of people in schools really get that. They really do. Even people we think or fear maybe aren't particularly sporty, very often they think, blimey, you know, how often have you delivered a session, friends, where one of the staff has said, can't believe how much more than cricket that was. That's great. That feels great. And it does happen. I know it happens to all of us at some kind of time. Anyway, this was the theme of this conversation, but something that really struck me, because I'll be honest, maybe I hadn't thought about it very much, was the gent in question said something to the effect of, we really need you guys in now because the kids are having to reinvent their own games. And I've thought about that a bit. I've thought about it more now, and he was specific in terms of the fact that because of COVID, plenty of sort of physical contact things are either debarred, or people think, eek, can we do that, can we not? So tag games, the kind of everyday rough and tumble that children might do in or outside of school, there are issues around it possibly. And I know age groups, you know, bubbles, all those things, this is contingent upon those things. However, the central point about children maybe not being able to do traditional game A, B or C is really quite a big, you know, it's a significant kind of conceptual challenge for people in schools, including us, right? And that fits really quite nicely with something that has been just occurring to me, and some of you, forgive me, will have seen some of this on the Twitters about building games, making games, and passing over that opportunity. A bit concerned about that word actually because I'm hearing it too much in all the spiels that we see as press releases or whatever. But you understand what I mean. It's something that we can guide children towards, and that is powerful and that is important. And let me be specific, but this is very, very relevant to the stuff that I've done the last couple of days. I had my first, actually it was yesterday, I had my first sessions in a particular school, and I can name it because they've been very clear. They've put it out and about on social media. This was Pembroke Dock Community School, and again, I'm going to big them up because of the astonishing, magnificent level to which their staff, led by Michelle Thomas, the headmistress, and Stephen Jenkins, amongst many others. Stephen Jenkins is one of the deputy heads, and other staff, and not all of those people are proper cricket people. The two named certainly are, and there are others, but you know, there is a broader kind of cultural awareness in that school that, hang on, we can teach lots of stuff through the medium of movement, you know, in my case crickety based games, etc., etc. They are magnificent on that, and I'm happy to put myself on the record saying that. So inevitably they are one of the schools to which I go to immediately when given the opportunity, because A, I know they will support me and Chance to Shine and Cricket Wales, and B, actually their school, and again I'm not speaking out of turn, is in an area where there are levels of deprivation, difficulty, issues, all that stuff, yes, that we don't particularly need to go into, but trust me. So there's a real range of challenges, and again, I will use the word opportunities, because some of the children, frankly, probably don't have much kit, possibly don't have much input sometimes from family in terms of thinking about their physical, mental well-being, and how crucial that is. Anyway, that's the scene, okay? So I go in yesterday, and Chance to Shine, as we'll know, we are trying to follow a particular curriculum. All of us, I think, will be forgiven for kind of escaping from that or expanding upon that. And I say that, again, not as any kind of criticism, but inevitably a couple of cool catchers drills, that's the first one, or the first lesson theoretically, may not feel like they go far enough to get you through a 40-50 minute session with children, because sometimes you have to hurry through things, or things don't, in the real world, they don't necessarily work out. You may not have the space, or something may obstruct. So we all go in, yes, with a kind of kit bag in here, which we draw upon. Now then, partly instinctively, I did set up. I got there, I'd sanitised, I went into the school. Interestingly for me, and this is something we're all going to be sharing, no doubt, because I think it will vary a bit. And again, I'm not remotely accusing anybody of anything here, but from school to school, they will have slightly different protocols, you know, cultural awarenesses around where we're at. And in Pembroke Dock Community Primary School, teachers are, I think, again, I want to be careful with this, but I think they have a rule that teachers will wear masks all the time. And most of them are wearing them all the time indoors, not just in reception and in corridors and closed areas, which is what I led to believe that I had to be prepared for, but all the time in class. And actually some of them wore, I was out on the school field because the weather was great, huge bonus for me, but they were, some of them felt, yeah, I'm keeping the mask on. I didn't. I was very aware of a sort of 2 metre plus, actually, respectful distance from children. Why did I take my mask off? I think, well, two things actually. Wear glasses. Obviously, you know, if I have to wear, I will wear, of course. But not that easy if you're to be convincing and authoritative if your glasses are smoking up first thing when the children come out. Um, so there was that, and the lack of, it's not as comfortable, but it's doable, and I will do it if necessary. Possibly more importantly, in a sense, I think I just wanted to make sure I could project to these children. There were best part of 30 children in a class, and you do space them out somewhat, yes. So that was an issue. Okay, just a, yeah, how it was, how it felt, and I should start by saying I got authority from the deputy head to unmask on the basis that I would be a certain distance from these children. Okay, now then, this whole idea about creative play, making new games, yes, that the headmaster from the other school put to me. I started the session. I did 6 sessions actually in the day, and it was fantastic. And from a personal point of view, the first session I did, possibly because I was really on it, and the adrenaline is pumping and all that. And I'm sure we recognise that feeling. I'm not saying it deteriorated particularly during the day, but first up, I was pretty clued in and determined to be sharp, entertaining, funny, have great energy, all that stuff. And you know what? I'm going to boast. I did tick that box. The children, more importantly, perhaps the teacher at the end of it, said that, and also said to the children she wasn't doing this slightly glib thing where she was patting them all on the back, as a matter of course. She did say that she was really proud of how the children had attended and listened, and there were children with challenges in that area. In this group there were, but the teacher was very clear that she was really proud of these children for the level to which they had engaged with it. And I took that as a kind of thank you, and that's up. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of kind of not boasting about that. I'm just saying that it felt good, and that also makes you want to do the same and keep it going and keep it at a good level for the children. Yes. In that session, I had set up bog standard garden area delineated with 2 red lines of cones about 20 yards apart, just 2 straight lines. Okay, partly because I was conscious of this thing of filling the time well, and I don't mean just filling it blandly to get through to the 45-50 minute barrier. I mean really, yeah, doing something that was meaningful and had that Cool Catchers theme, and yet went beyond it. And it instinctively I thought, okay, we're going to do a warm-up. We're going to do a kind of generic warm-up which will turn into Cool Catchers of all kinds. And I did that, and I led it. I tried to be kind of funny and entertaining. That is my way. I know everybody's different in terms of personality, but mine is chirpy, friendly, daft, unashamedly daft, hopefully reasonably funny. I know I'm an ancient geezer, but I can actually work with children on that level. I hope. I think I can actually make them laugh and encourage them in that kind of way into a warm-up. Okay, specifically, I'm not going to give you all the boring details, but we all know the kind of thing we did. I called them journeys across the garden. We did 2 journeys, and I just offered the idea, why don't we start with, let's jog, we'll do some jogging. Didn't describe it, whatever. Got the children to do it and called it the finest jog I've ever seen or something. And they were already giggling a bit, I'll be honest, and liking this daft fella just offering fun things. So we went on from that, did other journeys, sometimes 2 journeys, sometimes 4, so that they had to think about a change from jogging to hopping right-footed to hopping left-footing, these kinds of things. So we actually didn't get into the Cool Catcher curriculum probably for best part of 15 or possibly even 20 minutes. Was that overlong? Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. Because intuitively, I think, because it happened slightly, well, not entirely by accident, but we did some of this stuff, and then I said to the children, okay, one of the things I'm going to say to you boys and girls quite a bit, because I'm here for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we're going to have a fantastic time, lots of things are going to happen, but you will hear from me this question quite a bit. How are we going to make this work? And by that I meant the game, the skill, all of it. How do we make it more fun, whatever? I didn't say too much, but I went on from that to say, so, who's seen Wales before an international game? Who's seen swimmers? Who's seen footballers? Anybody got any ideas? What else might we do that might be fun and actually really might be part of our warm-up? I had used this phrase by now. This was year 3. I was with the year 3 and 2 throughout the day, and the kids were all over it. It was great. They started suggesting, and I went with it, even if I thought it was a bit of a weird one. I went with it where possible, or certainly made the young coach feel like they were being listened to. Absolutely. Maybe adapted it a touch once or twice, but one of the early ones was a little boy who showed me movements like this, and I thought, okay, this is great, and actually just said front crawl, and he was not inarticulate, but he couldn't articulate quite what he meant, but I knew exactly that he meant that he'd seen, probably could well have been rugby players actually, doing that windmill thing with their arms. So off we went with windmilling our arms, and we called it front crawl, and we walked forwards doing front crawl, either something that looked like a real swimming movement or more opening the shoulders. Left it up to the children. I chirped in to say, okay, how about we do that forwards, and then backwards we do back crawl, coming backwards. So actually quite a lot of little movements, and actually having to think and engage different body parts, all that kind of stuff. So I would throw in little finesses every now and again, but we really did have 5 minutes is a relatively long time probably, but it was something like that where the children, 7, 8, 9 of them, something like that, who were giggling and loving it, because let's face it, very often you don't have to offer very much. They love to move. They love to look at their mates and see how, wild and free all this movement thing is. They came up. They entertained me. They ran the game for me for several minutes by originating themselves different movements, which were a real part, a valuable part of any kind of warm-up. So this was hugely encouraging, and I could see the teacher already thinking, this is great, because look how much of this stuff is coming from the children. We actually hadn't got to any cricket yet, actually, okay? So then we went into stuff that is in the Cool Catcher curriculum, really. Various catches, various numbers of journeys. I set up this thing. I probably started it with, okay, boys and girls, I want you to do that many catches in that many journeys. Didn't say anything else. Off they go. Some throw it way too high. Maybe you've said something about that beforehand. Off it, give you some space or something, or take a little care. And they are inventing already. What does he mean by catches? Which kind of catches? They are working that out a bit. We did that stuff. Then expanded by adding in claps, different various catches. Again, it was year 3 and 2. Year 2 are really pretty small, so they aren't going to do lots of ambitious catching stuff, but they are going to love having a go, most of them. And I didn't do hardly any. In fact, we left it several minutes before I offered some questions, and there were questions about how we make this work. Again, back to that question. I like this theme. The whole of this spiel is about that, really, I think. So we did different movements, tried to vary it, tried to make it entertaining, and then I said, okay, boys and girls, imagine I've just landed from Planet Zog. Been watching you people kind of get this game, but not completely. Can you help me? How could you make me understand? How does this catching thing work? What are we actually doing? And quite challenging concepts in some kind of way. I put it carefully in different ways, but I didn't want to ladle on any kind of technical stuff. And answers came back. much more from year 3, interestingly, than year 2. Again, no surprise, particularly whatever. And so we get into the obvious one: keep your eye on the ball, from little girl who has played some cricket or who's been to rugby or football, even whatever. And then fairly briefly, but trying to really draw the attention, being a big, friendly, maybe daft, entertaining person that they might want to watch. I did do a demonstration or two, just kind of briefly, and went back to the idea of being an alien who didn't really understand. So, but it looked like when it was working for you children, when you were doing these fantastic catches, I think you really were watching it all the way in. I think that was the thing that, and on again, and from there, just let them stay in the garden for 1 minute, and then release them into the wider space. We were on a bigger field and said, okay, don't go 4 miles away, but go and play your own catching game. We were still on our own at this point. And this was done partly because I'd seen some boys inevitably wanted to throw it 460 feet up in the air. And I think that's great in a bigger area. If you've got scope to do that, why not let them do that a bit? Obviously, you intervene if it's getting too wild. Offered them that opportunity, directed them towards that opportunity, actually, to go out there and think a bit about what might feel like fun. I probably did use that phrase, something like that. How's this game going to work? What can we do? And off they went, and did that for 10 minutes ish, something like that, because it didn't seem wasteful. It did seem like quite a lot of the children, again, they were on their own right, were playing something worthwhile, learning something worthwhile, watching their pals, some of them. Some of them drifting, it's going to happen. Some of them not really able to do all that much. But it was definitely worthwhile in terms of that, lodging with them the idea that, okay, even if it's not received or understood entirely like this, but it was clear that it was down to them to do some of this stuff. So did that for a few minutes, brought them back in. Probably recap very briefly on the watching the ball all the way in thing, and then said, okay, now I want you to get a partner. I want you to give me one of the balls back, and I went off and sanitised them, obviously, in a minute. And then, same kind of thing, go back out into the garden, play a catching game. Did not say anything more than that. And off they went. And this bit was really, really interesting, really encouraging, because they did. You know, I hadn't told them, I hadn't directed them towards a particular game, very much in the hope that they might find something. I might have walked around at a kind of safe distance saying stuff like, great catch, mate. Okay, you guys are flying, you guys are going beautifully here. So what's next for you? How do you know? How would they recalibrate the game? How would they take it up? I was saying, but to them, I was saying something like, so what's going to feel like more fun? If you're really catching really, really well, and you're this close, what else could you do? We could go further apart. Great idea. We could throw it over. Great idea. Etc. etc. And it did happen. It really did happen this way. Not with everybody, obviously different levels, etc. etc. But that the engagement with this hashtag, how do we make this work, was fantastic. So I warbled humongously, sorry friends, but I am really on that one, and it may be flawed, and the actual wording may be flawed. I will be asking questions less well than certain other people, but I'm just trying to offer this one out of camaraderie and friendship and not arrogance, I hope. How could I be arrogant looking like this? That how great could it be if we could provide some kind of framework around which these children could invent the new games that my friend the headmaster said, you know, in a kind of revelation to me earlier on. They're going to need to do this, aren't they? They're going to have to find this creativity is the word. So I'm starting to do that. I ain't always going to get it right. I bet you'll do it better, but please try and do it, or at least think about it, or come back to me and shout me down and tell me it's all a load of cobblers. It's just an offering, friends. Good luck, and I'll see you knocking about. Cheers.